Greetings, hello, and welcome into the space known as a Center of Being Dojo. Thank you. I welcome you all here on YouTube, Center Your Being TV, on Facebook and Instagram, Center of Being Dojo. I welcome you into our space, fellow beings. I had the desire to come to you today in the aftermath of what has been the election cycle. Having explored the spaces and places of the lamenting of many hearts, the celebration of others, as the results have been discovered by us all, as well as just the space where we reflect on the aftermath of the holidays known as Los Dias de los Muertos, All Saints and Souls Day. Those of us who operate in the space of recognizing our connection to Mother, many of us recognizing the end of the old year. And as we embark upon the close of harvest season. And so, we just came out of that miraculous eclipse of the blood moon in Scorpio. So many galactic and celestial milestones around this occasion. And I wanted to come to you today to share, again, some of the meandering of my heart in my wellness space as it relates to a variety of topics and subject matter. And so I wish to disclose at this time, or perhaps we should call it a foreword, that within the prose that I shall share today, the ensemble of words that has come forth from my being to share with yours. Today there is some vocabulary, and so as I improve my effort to communicate the things that are most attached to my heart and my effort to surface my desire for well-being, not just for myself, but for my fellow beings, there is a short list of vocabulary words that you indeed will hear in the word shared today. Excuse me. My nose, the fall is definitely falling, and I can definitely guarantee those spores, the nut matter, all of those things that fall out of the trees definitely do a number on my sinuses. So forgive me in advance, shall we say? But I wanted to, again, share with you a list of vocabulary words that I encourage you to seek your own wisdom and interpretation of. So my words today are negotiation, power, law, physics, diplomacy, regulate, interstate, commerce, constitution, Democrat, Republican, prodigal, prodigy, progressive, liberal, and enterprise. So these words you'll hear, and I shall offer my interpretation of these words, which I share with the online resource of Google. I encourage, of course, that you discover in the space of higher learning, which is the self, that you reference the space of higher learning with a book and extend your higher knowledge, right? And so I appreciate you for receiving me always, those of you who are willing to engage with me on this journey of the ensemble of words. And so I wanted to share this piece with you today, which in my heart is titled, With Gratitude for Disobedience. Psalm 11:11. The negotiation of power. As I've stated before, politics is the negotiation of power. What do we mean by this use of terminology? Negotiation. Aimed at reaching an agreement, described as the action or process of transferring ownership of a document. And power, the noun. Again, I've stated in the past, the ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as faculty or quality, as in the power of speech, or the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. Power, the verb, to supply a device with mechanical or electrical energy, as in your car is powered by fuel, or to move or travel with great speed or force. Puts me in the mind of physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. What are the laws of physics? Well, first law, a system of rules recognized by a community as regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. Again, law, a system of rules recognized by a community as regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. Physics, the branch of science concerned with the nature and properties of matter and energy. What are Newton's laws of physics? The law of gravity. An object attracts another object in direct proportion to their combined mass and inversely related to the square of the distance between them. The bigger it is, hence they are together. Yes! You know, this is a household that is fluid. The bigger it is, hence they are together, and how far apart may be from the other determines the gravitational or natural pull one has on the other. The first rule of physics, according to Newton, is an object will remain at rest or in a uniform state of motion unless that state is changed by an external force. The second rule, force or power is equal to the change in momentum times the velocity. Force is equal to the change in momentum times velocity. Rate of change is directly proportional to the amount of force applied. Third rule, for every action in nature, there is an equal and opposite reaction. You see what I'm talking about? So, Prince has always got to be seen and heard, so I'll call him over now. Prince, sit. Sit here. So then let's journey further in these linear yet abstract concepts. Linear meaning established, and abstract meaning open to the interpretation of the user. As in, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So if in my theory, politics is the negotiation of power, Prince, The power dynamic that exists in the Western social construct includes three primary points of reference to be considered. Again, if in my theory, politics is the negotiation of power, the power dynamic that exists in the Western social construct includes three primary points of reference to be considered. The first is the executive branch, which includes president, governors, mayors, its officers, and or officiants. The legislative body, statesmen, both local and federal, include the House, Senate, council persons, and of course we know that our House and Senate make up our Congress. Judicial, lawyers, judges, clerks, and scribes, its officers and attendants. Executive branch. I'd like to say at this point what these various bodies are responsible for within this Western construct of power. The executive branch conducts diplomacy with other nations and has the power to negotiate and sign treaties. What is diplomacy? It is the profession or activity or skill of managing international relations, most typically by a country's representative abroad. Or the art of dealing with people in a sensitive and effective way. I'll state that again. Diplomacy, the art of dealing with people in a sensitive and effective way. I've often said my brother, a Taurus, was always the diplomat between my mother and myself. Just as an example. The executive branch carries out and enforces laws. The legislative branch, which is made up of the House and the Senate, known here in these United States as our Congress, makes all laws, declares war, regulates interstate and foreign commerce. It controls taxing and spending. Ultimately, this branch of our government ratifies bills into law, regulates interstate commerce, controls trade and currency. Judicial, interprets the laws made by legislators, defines the constitutionality of the law, and applies it to individual cases. So it would apply the constitutionality and the interpretation to individual cases. Constitution, basic principles and laws of a nation, state, social group, and or community that determines the power and duties of the government. Or, as I like to say, the electoral decision-making body, and they guarantee certain rights to the people. Again, the Constitution is the basic principles and laws of a nation, state, social group, or community that determines the power and duties of the government. Or, as I like to say, the electoral decision-making body, and it guarantees certain rights to the people. The composition of something is also its constitution, as I've stated, your state of being. What is the etymology of constitution? Constituere, establish or appoint. Synonyms for constitution: composition, makeup, structure, organization, or as I prefer to describe it, the state of our being, any one thing, good, bad, or indifferent, provides us with insight to our being. Now, let's move on and away from such esoteric thoughts and meanderings. What then of this present and the application of these terms I attach to this discourse? Well, maybe we should engage in a bit of storytelling to distract the brain from all of my philosophical endeavors. I think then I shall share the story of the prodigal son and what I feel are the direct implications in my current train of thought. And so let me begin. We've all been introduced to this story. If not this story, the overarching theme has been thrown at us for edutainment, contemplation in every form of media, from comic books in the Marvel and DC universe to the epic storytelling of J.R.R. Tolkien, Frank Herbert, and George Lucas. In anime such as Akira, it has been expressed in the lyrical prose of Ye, Tupac, Nas, and Jay-Z, as well as in a myriad of ballet renditions. This story of the young man who rebels against his father's authority and leaves home to investigate the world. What of the daughter, though? She who is never mentioned in such things, again, what of her? But then that makes me think of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the story of the prodigal daughter. So, you'll find this story housed in the Bible, Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. A man with two sons, one older, one younger. And upon the eve of the inheritance, the granting of inheritance, the younger son asks for his inheritance now. And it is granted. He leaves home and squanders his wealth, and then he must labor with pigs no less. But still, he does not make enough to eat as good as the pigs that he is caring for. Now, mind you, this man asks for his father's inheritance to him. He asked for it before time. The father is still living, still tending to his farm and his fiefdom and his servants and his wife and his household. But the young son wants his now and says, "Father, may I have it?" And the father says yes. And he goes off and he squanders it all on trifling things to the point where he has to work with the pigs. And in working with the pigs, he is still not able to make enough to eat as good as the pigs that he is taking care of. So he remembers his father's care and his father's bounty over his own servant people. And he goes back to his father. And he admits his disobedience and disrespect, at least unto himself. The sins of the son upon the father. And at this time, he chooses to impose his own discipline, to return not as a son, but as a servant in his father's house. The father sees him coming home and greets him with love, tenderness, and fondness. He is greeted by his son's own self-admonishing. He yells to his servants, though, "Bring the best of clothes, bring the best of robes, and kill the fattest calf to feast in celebration. For this son of mine, who was dead and is now alive again, he was lost and now is found." So preparations for festivities begin. The older son, who was out in the field laboring, as he had always done, hears the commotion. He approaches his father's house and asks the servants, "What's going on here?" The servant says, "Your brother has returned and your father has killed the fattest calf to celebrate." The older son is incensed. He admonishes his father and refuses to set foot inside the home. He asks his father, how could he engage himself in this way for the son who left and wasted your resources on frivolous things when I stayed and labored for you? You didn't celebrate me. You didn't even offer up a goat. His father pleads with him to stay and says this to him: "My son, you are always with me, so everything I have is yours. And we celebrate now, and we are glad because this brother of yours, this brother who was dead and is alive again, he was lost, and now he has been found again." What is the lesson of this story, and how does it apply today? Why does it press so into my heart? Well, quite simply put, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. If you would allow me and extend me a minute more of your grace, I offer you this. The midterm elections just passed in Georgia. And in Georgia, the race was one to watch. We discovered the next day in the morning that Brian Kemp is indeed to remain our governor, that Warnock and Walker are indeed still neck and neck, and Marjorie Taylor Greene held her seat. Allegedly, 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 allegedly. As I stated before, I'm not attached to the candidates, but rather to the issues. So, to the victor goes the spoils, right? Well, let me come back to this point momentarily. But first of all, I wanted to share this. I am so personally excited to see that many came out and participated. And I am so sincere in that. Though I am reading from my own book, I must express to you my absolute excitement and joy to see so many participated in the process, willingly, willfully, intentionally. It's so important. Whether black or white, woman, man, old, young, gay, straight, rich, or poor, in that ballot box, all were equal who participated, and even those who did not. They made their presence known, if not by showing up, then they made their presence known by paying taxes in obligation to the code. They showed up in the declared responses and mandates of the public health crisis known as a pandemic. Or they showed up at the gas pump, or at the retail store, even at the farmer's market. You can best believe you, me, we, all of us were counted in some way, shape, or form. Your presence has indeed been leveraged. Again, politics is the negotiation of power or the lack thereof. A tyranny of the majority, indeed. So, what was all the hoopla? And why do I avoid the conversations that reference this party over that one? Look at my other posts. You'll learn why I disallow myself to engage in such extreme actions and antics of division. I'm only going to now simply define as best I can Republican. A person advocating or supporting a state which supreme power is held by the people and their elected officials, which has a nominated president and not a monarch. A group with a certain equality between its members. Democrat, one who participates in social equity, an advocate for democracy or social equity of all people. I'm serious though, for real. So henceforth, they shall be known as the same party. Y'all hear what I'm saying to you? Republican, Democrat. From this point forward, just understand why I don't get involved in either party, in any of the selection of candidates. It's not about that. It is about the issues of their platform, because at the end of the day, by definition, they're the same party. But now, why the prodigal son? In reference to this day and all the meager emoting. Prodigal, meaning spending money or resources freely, wastefully, in extravagance, as in on a lavish scale. Prodigal, a person who spends recklessly. Who have been the folks described as such? Prodigy, a young person endowed with exceptional qualities, an amazing or unusual thing, one that is out of the ordinary. Which of these has been described as such? Progressive, or developing gradually, happening or developing gradually or in stages. Progressive, to proceed step by step. As a person, progressive is considered a person advocating or implementing social reform or liberal ideas. Then what is liberal? Willing to accept behaviors or opinions other than one's own. Do you get that? Progressive, happening or developing gradually in stages, to proceed step by step. Or liberal person, a person advocating or implementing social reform or new liberal ideas. So then what is liberal? Willing to accept behavior or opinions other than one's own. So the social and political structure, the philosophy that promotes individual rights and civil liberties, our democracy, is connected to this concept of free enterprise. What is enterprise? To project an undertaking that is typically difficult or requires effort. It is also known as a business or organization. And a democracy, simply put, promotes social welfare. So, with this in mind, let us re-examine the political landscape that was presented over the last 48 hours, Dem versus Republican, and the candidates. Well, these are too many to mention. As I stated before, they matter not as much to me as the issues, the platform of electoral issues represented by each and offered to the populace on which we made our vote. So let's go over the Georgia ballot initiatives, the policies. The Georgia ballot initiatives included the following. Georgia proposed a halted pay for indicted officials or individuals. Do you hear that? Georgia proposed a halt in pay for indicted elected officials. Georgia proposed to allow local governments to offer tax relief following disasters. And this tax relief would be offered to property owners. Georgia proposes to exempt timber companies from paying property taxes. And finally, Georgia proposes to extend property tax exemption for agricultural equipment. These were your policy initiatives. I ask only this. If those of you who feel so castrated by the outcome of a candidate election to the body of governance, those of you who are hit dogs out there hollering whether or not their presence at the polls would ever, could ever, should ever determine the outcome of any race. So let me be clear. Those of you who are out there sowing your feelings over the fact that your presence at the poll did not determine the outcome that you sought in this race, and you feel like in races of past, electoral races in the past, that your presence has never determined an outcome in the candidate, that it has never, that it will never, that it could never, that because of how the power structure is set up, it should never. What of all these egos? Did you not also vote for those ballot initiatives that impact local farming homesteads? So there's this whole farm to table movement, and we've got folks out there growing their own food and managing their own agriculture. Folks are purchasing into land, and that last policy initiative affected y'all. You were there to vote on that too. Remember, you act local. You think global, but you act local. The other, to discontinue the pay of an indicted elected official and the allowance and the relief for property owners after a disaster. Were these not the victories felt in the outcome of your participation? Be not fooled by the distractions and the antics of the day of yay. For we must remember he is a performer, much like his mentor, both leveraging power as they seek a synergistic monarchy of sorts, one in which only them and those appointed by them hold power. Their efforts to use our infighting to remove us from the awareness of their intended outcome, domination and world supremacy. The American populace, the voting and the electoral process as it is absolutely, without a doubt, imperfect. And as I've stated before, is not fair. Is not fair. Yet it is functional and indeed progressive by the very definition of the word, step by step, taking place over time. Both parties uplift the cause and decree of the people to manage themselves in opposition to the monarchs. Both parties uplift the cause and decree of the people to manage themselves in opposition to the monarchs, to uphold the practice of social equity between its members, those who participated, the majority, and those who did not, the minority. Don't get it twisted. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yes, with that Social Security number, that birth control number, that passport number, you were already counted, whether you wish to be included or not. But as the prodigal son learned through his endeavors and the lessons that he gained from being in the world, that the grass is not always greener on the other side. So then the question of balance, I dare say equity, the quality of being fair and impartial. This is how we leverage the power after the vote. Remember what the father said to the son, the older son, who stayed and labored in his fair and impartial judgment on his sons. We will celebrate the one who went away, the son who rebelled. It is in the nature of children to rebel against their parents. They should not be traitorous, though. But it is in the nature, that is their progression to find their own way. Yet and still, the one who stays near to home, the one who is committed and loyal to home base and family, what of him? He is also in a space to be inherited and celebrated. He's in a place to inherit and be celebrated, and was already considered by his father. He made his own choice not to go out into the world and chose to stay. The grass is not always greener on the other side. Again, this is how we leverage power after the vote in terms of the issues that created the foundation of each electoral candidate's platform. This is the space of our negotiation. For example, when we think of the race between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams, allegedly, Brian received roughly 52% of the vote, and Abrams 48%. I would say that neither could assume an outright majority. And so, therefore, we step into this process and this space of politics. We have the power to negotiate and uphold the practice of social equity amongst our own membership by leveraging our vote for either one against their platform and electoral issues. Let me share with you those now. So these are Brian Kemp's initiatives, or Governor Kemp. Make Georgia #1 for small businesses. Cut obsolete, unnecessarily burdensome, and bureaucratic hurdles for small businesses. Maintain Georgia's competitive tax environment. Develop a skilled workforce to meet current and future needs across the industry spectrum. Expand Georgia's role as a world-renowned hub for global commerce. Ensure taxpayers can easily navigate and find necessary information through government interfaces. Reform state government. Maintain Georgia's AAA bonding rate. Maximize taxpayer value with conservative budgeting. Expand public-private partnerships and leverage technology to best utilize limited state resources. And improve agency call centers and similar constituent services to be courteous and helpful. Strengthen rural Georgia. Increase rural broadband access for economic growth, educational opportunity, and healthcare access. Deploy regional strike teams to areas with economic challenges or lessening populations to collaborate with local leaders and seek opportunities for growth. Address Georgia's teacher shortage by removing barriers to professional entry and increasing pay. Dismantle Common Core and reduce high-stakes testing for more student-centric approach to learning. Improve literacy rates for students in 3rd through 12th grades. Put Georgians first. Crack down on gang activity and human trafficking affecting every community across Georgia. This is his wife's big thing. I'm going to say that again. This is his wife's big thing, human trafficking. Lower costs, improve quality, and increase access to quality health care in every region. Continue efforts to keep students, teachers, and personnel safe on campus. Expand access to mental health resources in school for children and young adults. That would be Governor Kemp's platform. Well, let us see how Stacey Abrams lined up in comparison. So, economic and jobs. She has a comprehensive plan to put money in Georgians' pockets, create good paying jobs, and invest in small businesses, expand minority contracting, and to help family farms in order to make Georgia the economic engine of the South. She plans to advance clean energy jobs and revitalize rural communities. A voting rights champion who will prioritize access to the ballot for every voter to protect democracy and effective government. She will fight back against unfair voting practices to ensure that every eligible voter can register to vote, cast a ballot, and have that ballot counted with undue burden. Plans to expand Medicaid to lower health care costs for all, provide 500,000 Georgians with health insurance, and stop hospital closures. This will bring our tax dollars back home that we've already paid in, create over 64,000 jobs, and revitalize rural and struggling communities. Will ensure Georgians have access to reliable health care from qualified providers by expanding Medicaid to cover 500,000 Georgians. She will address health care, worker shortages, lower health care costs, and save hospitals from closing across the state. That's Medicaid. For maternal morality, will support safe pregnancies, invest in maternal health care, fund rural hospitals, and recruit and retain physicians statewide, especially underserved areas and the 82 counties that have no OBGYN. Housing will ensure Georgians can access stable, safe, affordable housing by tackling housing affordability, the shrinking inventory of housing, the displacement of longtime residents due to gentrification, and the preventable tragedy of homelessness. Education will invest in quality child care and early education, raise teacher salaries, and decrease class sizes. She will ensure Georgia students can access post-secondary education funding, Georgian students can access post-secondary education by funding need-based financial aid, investing in 20K apprenticeships, and providing free technical college for all Georgians without raising taxes, and through passing gambling legislation. Public safety will repeal criminal carry and require gun owners to apply for a license to carry concealed weapons in public, and close the gun show loophole. Supports universal background checks and limiting access to guns for perpetrators of domestic violence and stalking. Reproductive freedom will repeal Brian Kemp's extreme and dangerous 6-week abortion ban. She will support access to family planning, protect access to contraception, and provide options for safe reproductive health care across the state, including for pregnancy loss. Again, I encourage you, as the father of the prodigal son encouraged his faithful son, because nothing in life is fair as much as it is that we make an attempt at fairness more than anything. What was lost, I must remind you, can be found again. For this we must rejoice. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? What we think was lost can be found again. And for this we must rejoice, because we can leverage our power. If only 52% of the vote went to Kemp and 48% to Stacey Abrams, allegedly, that's not exactly a far-reaching race. It's not like one had a major hold over the majority, which means you have a platform for negotiation. Those reasons why you voted for either candidate are your space to negotiate. Get in contact with your local elected official. Start right there in your city. Start right there in your council boards. Move up the chain into our Congress here, right here in Georgia. Be in touch with your senators. Be in touch with those folks that represent your house. You understand what I'm saying? Go sit with your governor, newly elected, and let him know, you know what, I voted, period. Take your sticker in. I voted, but I voted for this. So how are you going to satisfy me in that I participated in the process? Did you see how many of their platform issues are similar? And where they were divergent, there is the opportunity for progress. That is the goal of progression. That is the ideal of the liberal, to consider the opinions of one that is not oneself. All I can say at this point in time, as it's time for me to go and, do the running that I must do as a part of my obligations and responsibilities to my own household, my family, my homestead, all I can ask you in this moment, as a father would remind the faithful son who stayed at home, what did you do to expand your efforts in growing your own food? Did you teach your children or their children or even the children of your neighbors one new thing today? What effort did you make to heal thyself? What of the mother did you use to provide yourself? What of the mother, meaning earth, what of her did you use to provide yourself with comfort and respite? And then how did you give her thanks and praise? How did you participate in the balancing of things? What efforts did you engage in to return you to your center of being? I thank you for joining me and allowing me this time with you. These moments are precious. I know that I can be wordy. I'm working on my delivery of these thoughts into these spaces. I have challenged that many of my activities stay within the space of myself and my head. But at the end of the day, I'm so very thankful for many and several things. Most of all, this family that allows me to serve them authentically and unapologetically. I'm so very thankful for them. And beyond my thanks for my family, I'm thankful for this extended family that joins me in these meanderings of my heart and soul. I'm so thankful for your presence here. I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to grow my own food. I'm thankful that I've had the opportunity to work in the effort, the enterprise of healing my own body. I'm so thankful that I am a business owner. And though I'm not at the stage yet of making millions, my coin is large. And I always am filled with gratitude for my own abundance. Absolutely. And so, I'll leave you with this, as I always do. I just want to remind you very humbly, we thank you for joining us here at the center of being, where I remind myself, your vitality, it begins here. Ashe. Again, the name of this piece, the name of these thoughts, with gratitude for disobedience. Psalm 11:11. Ashe.